Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lauren Kalil with The Bottom Line. And today we have our sports analysis on. We have Tommy Marquez, Patrick Clark, and we have our special guest again, the voice of CrossFit, Chase
Cool.
Ingraham. How's it going, guys?
Oh, it's good. Good to do this again. I'm glad we're doing the women. It's going to be fun. This was. I feel like there was more to choose from than the men.
Definitely.
Just the field has been so deep over the last 5 to 6 years. I kept looking. I was like, oh, what about that one? What about that one? So I'm curious to see what you guys are picking today.
Yeah, especially with the amount of the sheer number of athletes unique that have been inside the top 10 over the past 6 to 8 years, with the emergence of all these other up and comers as well. It's certainly like Chase said, I'm very intrigued by this discussion.
Yes, I think we'll have quite a few to choose from.
It's going to be a fun one. And especially like going through all of the different men that got so close and maybe had like one or two reasons why they just never got there. I think the field is going to be a little bit bigger as we start discussing the women. So it's going to be a fun one, guys. All right, Chase, let's start with you. We're going to start with our guest.
Oh, man. I feel like, okay.
The pressure is on.
So let's see. I'm going to go with for me, is the one that always seems to had a bad break or a mishap, and felt like she was super, super close going into this year. And unfortunately, things didn't work out well in a snatch event. And Brooke Wells is, I think there's a long list, but one of those that it's always been like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Maybe this is the year. And then there's a step on a line. And then there's some injury that happens. And Brooke Wells is definitely one of those, if not, like, what is she? I'll put her in the podium of those that haven't podiumed. I'll put her in the top 3. That should probably be the heir apparent. So hopefully, she recovers well from this injury and she get back to form and better than what she was, because I thought she was right there with the potential to be on the podium, especially this year.
She's definitely one of those athletes that I feel like you feel like she's gonna do it eventually. Almost like she was looking like she was starting to turn the corner a little bit this season. She was she looked very comfortable overall where she was competitively, and like you said, that bad break, literally, I guess. And then also like the execution mistake of hitting the line, and I almost feel like she got a little bit of redemption in the sprint this year, kind of showcasing her raw sprinting ability. With her performance there, having the second best time behind Tia, and up until that point, up until that final heat, having the best time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look outside that event where she had that unfortunate accident, the following events really kind of played to her advantage, and she probably would have been fighting for a podium spot. But my question is, obviously it's a devastating injury. We don't know. I mean, we're anticipating she's probably not going to compete this year. But Tommy brought up Tommy. Yeah.
Don't do it.
I have consulted with my live-in physical therapist that I happen to be marrying, and she's on track to compete. She's on track to compete this year.
All
wow.
Right.
Yeah. The progress that she's made, and I think particularly her dedication to the rehab process by moving out to California, she should be able to at least compete in some capacity. She may not be 100%, but I think she'll be able to safely compete. The question is like the rebuilding of the strength around and the structures around that elbow in the time being.
Yeah, but you also have to, it's just not a health issue, but you also have to look at in terms of, we had a lot of athletes. I mean, you have the Mal O'Briens, you have the Gabby Magalas, you have all these young athletes. And that's the thing is, Brooke's only 27 years old.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like she's surprisingly young.
Yeah,
for how long
she started at 18, and she's a veteran. I mean, at one point she was probably in a discussion with Carrie Pierce as one of the top Americans. Maybe the next American to podium before Carrie did. So I don't know. I hope she does make the podium at some time in her career, but I just don't. It'll be interesting to see, especially with this influx of talent that's coming in, and that competitive field in the women's division after Tia. Because if you look at it, as long as Tia's there, there's only 2 podium spots available, and there's a lot of talented women competing for it.
I'd love y'all's opinions on this. Is Brooke Wells is before, like, just like any new athlete, their goal is just to make the games, and then maybe it's to make the podium. But like Brooke Wells' aspirations are to podium or win.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, is it even worth her risking coming back too soon just to make the games maybe, or get back to competition if she will not be in shape to podium or win?
I think it depends. I think it depends on her ability to decipher goals accordingly based on her progress. So if she's like, hey, I can, like, I'm not quite at full strength, but right now, like, as has been the case, like, I'm really need to work on some technical elements of how I move and how I perform at intensity. And this is an opportunity to test some of my ability to maintain that, like, structural integrity at a high level. Maybe. I mean, it's one of those things where I think she almost, if she can be safe, and I think that's a very important distinction. If she can be safe, this is almost a get out of jail free card for her to be able to do a run through the games where she doesn't have to worry about that same expectation and can almost focus on some other things that she's otherwise neglected at the games for the sake of performance or intensity or leaderboard spot. But that's also having to, like, temper that, like, competitive fire that has kind of driven her at the same point. So it's going to be, I'll be really interested to see what kind of discussions are going on behind the scenes between her and her proven training crew, because if they can properly suss out that type of goal for her at the games and she can stick to it, then it could actually be a nice, almost like test run as, hey, this is what technique absent of intensity gets me at the games, and now I have a better data set for my approach moving forward.
Yeah, I also think it's also a test mentally for, just going to the season and just no expectations and just going out there and have fun, and just see where she is, especially if she's able to compete. Let's say she makes it to a semifinal, competes in front of a live audience or a live crowd. I mean, obviously, the last time she competed in a crowd, in front of a crowd, that accident happened. So if she can get past that with no incident whatsoever, it helps her confidence. If she makes the games, and like Tommy says, the expectations are, hey, just go out there, have fun, and just not try to push herself, and build upon this for the 2023 season. So,
yeah. But I think there is something to be said about having that in-person competition again, and maybe getting over that hump of, this injury happened at the games. I'm sure that there's going to be some mental blocks that she experiences, especially if there is another event with a heavier snatch, that just mentally getting through that is going to be telling. But hopefully she does set those realistic expectations, because once you get on the competition floor, the adrenaline's going, and maybe your expectations or goals even start to get bigger, and just making sure that they're all realistic and having the right mindset going into this games that will build on for the next year.
Yeah, definitely. But that was a great pick. Way to lead off there, Chase.
Well, it's easy to go first, so I always felt like it's
leading off with Ricky Henderson. Lead off
right. Who's your top 3 greatest basketball players of all time? I'm like, I don't know. I'll pick Michael Jordan. You guys, good luck with the other 2.
All right, Tommy, how are you going to follow that one up?
Ooh, this is tough. So I had 4 women in particular on my list. Obviously, that's one. Brooke Wells is being a big one. It's tough because I think you have to look at what I would say realistic expectations are for the top end of that athlete and where they are in the career. So there are 2 other ones that I think that are a little bit more advanced in their career as far as age and as far as age is concerned. But I think already, even in this young career, I think you can put up Haley Adams' resume as an athlete that hasn't stood on the podium with the rest of them. 3 straight appearances, 3 finishes inside the top 10, has never finished lower than 6th at the games, has finished as high as 4th. It's crazy to think that already she has finished in the next 3 spots outside of the podium and has yet to crack that top 3 spot. And I think there's expectations that at some point she'll kind of start to figure it out. Obviously she's still developing as an athlete. There's still a lot of time for her to mature. It's crazy to think that she does have quite a bit of competitive mileage under her belt, given her time in the teen division. And I think there's slowly going to be this emphasis now as these young athletes start to get better is to, all right, well, I'm not the youngest one in the field anymore, so I can't leverage that as kind of like my justification or rationalization around where my path is. I have to start to nail down the technique. I have to start to work on, the structural integrity of my lifts and my top end strength and all these other elements. And she continues to, no matter what, she has an engine, and it's very similar to, I think, to Sam Briggs in her earlier days, where she has an engine and just a willingness to hurt and suffer that is always going to keep her in the conversation. And as we've seen with some athletes, sometimes it's just that one little switch here or there in a season or a competitive element of programming. Laura Horvath comes to mind, that gets them over the top. And I think as far as like mental capacity is concerned, she's got it. She's got the mental fortitude and the mental capacity. So now it's just like, it's ironing out those last two couple wrinkles, or making sure those last two folds in that fitted sheet are just tucked in perfectly. And sometimes, that just takes a little extra time.
I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, I do too. So do you think that you might need, for someone like Haley to podium, or even win, she kind of needs like a Camille type situation when it comes to the games, where the program just lines up perfectly? Or do you think because she has such a solid base with her cardio and her engine that she can probably succeed and do that without the programming?
To a much lesser extent. I think Camille is a little bit. I think Camille needed a much more drastic change because of her previous finishes. You look around; she had never finished inside of the top 5 before that year, and the anomaly of that season in general. I think outside of maybe Annie Thorisdottir, I don't think any one of those athletes in the top 10 ever finished inside the top 10 again at the games. So in general, that was kind of and there are a handful of athletes that never even went back. Lauren Brooks comes to mind. And that was a very weird anomaly year. But I think Haley in general needs it much, like I said, to a much lesser extent. And I think she also excels at some of the out of the box type workouts and programming that we see at the games. And that was never Camille's strong suit. She was always an in the gym CrossFitter, thrusters, pull-ups, barbell cycling, all of those little things, muscle ups, things that you're going to get inside your box programming. She was elite at it, and that showed with how she was able to win open workouts and perform well globally on the open circuit as well as regionals. So I think Haley has a few extra aces up her sleeve when it comes to programming as far as like leeway. But I do think there might have to be some, barring like her completely retooling her game and starting to hit that development streak that we've been waiting to see. I think that it might just be one, maybe 2 workouts here and there, because I mean, really, it took that Kari Pierce performance at the ranch to keep her off. This year we had back-to-back heavy events at the games that she actually performed quite well in one of them. Relative to her, I guess, her fitness, but you get a 25th and a 33rd back-to-back at the games, and for a young athlete like that, and when there's a max lift coming, that's going to be the difference maker there.
I think we forget about Haley is we said that she's got a lot of like game city miles on her, but she's what, 20, maybe going on 21.
I think 21.
Think about her strength at this age relative to Annie Thorisdottir. When Annie was 20, 21, she wasn't snatching 175, 185. She was just a string bean. Right now, they're different body types as Annie has matured over the years, but like I think Haley is like 2 to 5% increase on her overall lifts, and that which will also increase her ability to move 80 to 90% better. But she has top elite skills and endurance, and like you said, out of the box stuff. So I think she is closer than it appears, because you see her with her foot on a bar and not lifting it in one event and getting mid pack or below in a strength test. But I feel like people need to be almost a bit more patient with Haley, because we forget how old she actually is and how far ahead she is of the curve of a lot of these athletes were when they were 20, 21.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of timeline do you guys see when it comes to when she will make her or be at her peak performance level, knowing how young and how much games experience she already has?
I would honestly like, she could turn it around tomorrow and start to develop the I guess subjectivity of athletic development in an individual is always hard to put a finger on. But if you go back and you look at where some of the current stars of the sport really developed into their own, Tia, Katrin, right around that 24, 25 range is when we started to really see them take off. And not just it's weird to use the maturity element of her, because like we said, she's done so well, but you started to see a refinement in their athletic prowess, and I would say their execution on the competition floor that came from a comfortability, I can't speak, with like certain loads and gymnastic skills and things like that just came from time under tension on the competition floor at the highest level. So I would say like 24, 25. You remember, like, she's still like Haley still shouldn't even be out of college yet, and and so like at 21, Chase was probably shotgunning Lone Stars at SMU, and
I was setting
how
keg
long
stand records. That's what I was doing.
Daddy likes
Hey,
Swimming slow and drinking fast. That's what I was doing.
winning bets on how long he could hold his breath underwater. But it's like it's really tough to gauge because we're kind of resetting the game board. And to what Chase said, like, Annie wasn't and still isn't the best mover, and is been able to develop like the totality of her fitness game around other things besides that to help buffer. I do think that the difficult thing that Haley has faced is that that Bannister effect, right? The Roger Bannister effect of like, once people break the 4-minute mile, everyone's going to start doing it. So like the gold standard for what the minimum effective dose of being a top games athlete is going to change. And so while Haley has that like 3 to 5%, I'd be really curious if there was a way to actually measure this over time at the games to see how much the baseline games athlete has progressed since then too, because Annie was winning like endurance events. She was winning pyramid double Helen and running events at the games back in the day. And it was just a different sport at that time.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick, who do you have as your pick?
Oh, I have 2 picks, but I'm gonna stick with the one. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Aramo.
That's good.
I was wondering if anybody was going to bring her up.
She's on my list.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. She's only one outside of 10 in her career. I mean, she's another person when we talked about Brooke Wells being a top American. She was one of those, and is still one of those athletes who can say they can for that. And even this 32-year-old this past year game, she was in the podium spot after, I think, day 1 or day 2. She was right behind second or third, and she was having great performances.
Cut out.
She's definitely someone that I don't know. She's still competing at a high level, obviously, but I don't know if she'll ever make the podium, and I hope she does, because she's a great person, a great athlete. But 32 years old, we see what Andy did past year, so it's possible.
I see Aramo. I think it's a great pick. I see Aramo as like the American Kristen Holte. Maybe not as ignored, but like very, very similar athletes, very similar performances and strengths and weaknesses. She just hasn't hit that podium position like Holte did that one year.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at her resume, and like Patrick said, she's got 4 top 10 finishes, 5 if you include her finish with the team the year she took a year off in 2019, and her lone finish outside of the top 10 was a 13th. So it's like you can almost guarantee that she's going to be in that upper tier, competing in that final heat throughout the weekend. And pretty much every year she's competed at the games, she's had multiple top 2 finishes. So like you're looking at someone that without even knowing the programming, you're going to have 190 to 195 points in your back pocket, no matter what, from 2 events at the games. And, that alone, I think already that puts puts you somewhere around like the 30 to 35 range. If you didn't do any other events at the games, the rest automatically beats some of the points totals from some of your fellow constituents. But it's something that she is so good at the endurance events, and she is so good once things get beyond that like 15, 18-minute time domain that we see as like the endurance format for like semifinals, that she's gonna smash an event. She's gonna be up there with an Emily Rolfe or a Tia Claire Toomey for one of the long events, and she's going to keep herself in that conversation. Now the question is, like Patrick said, is the window starting to close?
Mm. Yeah, because I feel like she's been part of the conversation for so long. Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
No, I think one good example of the type of athlete she is look at her performance at the last year qualifiers last year. You know, day one, she kind of struggled and then crushed it day two to the games. I mean, that perfect workout made for her.
All right, let's kind of talk about some of the other people that maybe we had on our list or were like a second pick, because I feel like with the women's field, there's so many that have been so close year to year. So who else do we have?
I think it's when you start getting into your like wedding handcuffs. You guys know what I'm talking about? I was like, these two for sure, but because I picked these two, I have to take this one. I feel like that's where we're going to get into it. It's
a good analogy.
If any of you guys planned a wedding before, there's always like these two, but I can't invite these two without this third one. I feel like that's
Tommy, I'm
in the throes of that right now.
It's a real thing, right?
Oh man,
thing. I think one of these handcuffs is someone who actually just retired, is Alessandra Pichelli. Her first year, she gets fourth as a rookie, has 2 injured years, and then comes back and gets another, I think, top 10 performance on her like really healthiest year back. But she constantly dominated regionals, did well at the CrossFit Games. I mean, she was one of the tougher competitors in there, and just, you know, after her rookie year, which was, I think it was 2013, she gets 4th place and then never really makes the top 5 after that. Tom, what was the next best? Like a 6th?
I think she had an 8th and maybe a 9th. Yeah, she had an 11th as well one year.
Yeah.
So she was like hovering around that after that 4th. I want to say she had an 8th. I can find that for you.
Yeah. But you know, it's one of those that, you know, such a strong start right there on the cusp as a rookie, and then kept making it back year after year. And she had a long career at the CrossFit Games. I mean, she was I guess she technically podium on a team.
Yeah, she did Diablo.
But as an individual, I mean, and that was back-to-back years. Like your rookie game season, you podium on a team. Your rookie individual season, you get 4th. So I think Pichelli is definitely in the conversation of one of those like next tier athletes outside the podium.
Yeah, she had another 9th as well, and she had, I want to say, like 5 or 6 finishes of like 14th or better. So she was constantly like pressing in top 10-ish area. Like a couple years she'd be in the top 10, have a back off year, come back stronger, and she was always in the hunt. She won regionals 3 times. So whether it was NorCal or the West Regional, she was one of those athletes that was always leading from the front out of California. But I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, it's very good. That was my second.
As your handcuff.
Yeah, that was my handcuff.
Tony Pollard to your Ezekiel Elliott.
That's my Tony Pollard.
Tony's gonna get a, not to dive into football, but he's gonna get a nice dose these next couple of weeks, I think.
Oh man, I just got the questionable tag on my fantasy football update for Pollard. So.
Oh no.
Yeah, bro. Sorry. Don't want to derail.
Yep, you got 2 Cowboys fans on this stream. But let's see.
All right, Tommy. Who else on your list?
I had Amanda Barnhart on there.
Yeah.
She like there's a couple like criteria that I was looking for is like 2+, and at best 3+ finishes inside the top 10 without making it on the podium, and she's up there. She's got three finishes inside the top 10, a best finish of 7th, and she's one of those athletes that's like I feel like every year I feel like myself white knuckling like something at the desk, or like just like, oh, come on, Amanda, just like
I know exactly what you're
like,
talking about.
oh! And I have nothing but love for Amanda, and the highest praise of her as an athlete and how she's continued to grow, and how she developed from this athlete that just kind of showed up in 2018 and won 3 events at the Central Regional, and we're like, who is this? Who is this girl? And she just came out and established herself as one of the elite. I think she's a highly respected and highly liked athlete in the competitive field. But there's still like some moments where I want to see that like killer instinct from her, And the second event of the back-to-back lifting events with the run and clean, when she was like power cleaning and barely even re-dipping on the final barbells, but she was taking the time to like set her belt and set her feet. And like I said, in that moment, I'm just like, just grab it and go. Like, you quit this, and I think that's, she got into the upper echelons of the sport at a little bit later age than some of these other athletes. She's 30 now, so she was 26, 27 already when she broke through and really became a top 10 athlete. And so I think it's just a slightly different adjustment for her, and it's just a slightly different like arc for her as well. But I think everyone looks at her like she's like that athlete that shows up at the combine and just wows everybody. And you're like, oh my gosh, like you just got to like put those pieces together. Like you run a 4.40, you got a 42-inch vertical, you hit the bench press for like 35 reps, and you ran the second fastest 3-cone drill. Like that's the type of like stats on paper that she has. And I think, we're waiting for that like year for her to like fine tune everything and figure out the competitive element of it.
Where do you think the carryover could be for her?
What was that, Pat?
Oh, that's a Sean Woodland pick too.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
really
totally. Sean is really good at identifying like raw ability. Like he saw Laura Horvath like a year and a half before everyone else, and he like it was like he watched one event at the Europe Regional. And he's like, yeah, she's got podium potential. I was like, whoa, okay. And he came back and he was like, we have to watch this like 17, 18-year-old. He's like, she's going to be a star. Right? And he was right. So, but what were you saying, Lauren?
What do you think the carryover could be for her? Because when you look on paper, she's got all of these very impressive stats. So what do you think is that missing piece to make her a podium contender?
Well, typically speaking, it's always been upper body pulling has been her weakness. High reps, muscle ups, bar muscle ups, legless rope climbs. But she has such. It just sounds weird because I say this about myself. I'm an above parallel athlete. I'm a hip driven athlete. If it's all just about like quickly opening and closing your hips, it's all right. But if we have to do the strict stuff or high reps, she's also got a big wingspan like myself. And, we're just basically the same athlete at this point. But
short shorts. I mean,
yep. I rock a headband, collegiate swimmer for Cleveland. No, I think she's starting to work on some of those weaknesses for upper body pulling as well. But there's also, I think, there's also like a tenacity that I think like she's got it. It's hard to say because sometimes you can't always build that. Sometimes it's just a switch that flips where you kind of like they say in football, you got to have some dog in you. Like you got to get that little grit in that, or as in Australia, they call it the mongrel. You got to get a little mongrel in you. I think there's got to be a way. She's so nice. And she's just such a good person, a pleasant person to be around. Sometimes maybe she's just like, I don't know, got to like start having nails for breakfast or something like that. But I do think like that competitive like edge where maybe like you might be a little bit more focused and a little bit more gritty on the competition floor, and some people may not like it, might be the recipe.
She was almost like the complete reciprocal of Haley Adams as far as skill sets and mental, like you said, Tom, is like Haley is a savage when it comes to competition. I mean, like there's nothing more apparent than watching that hill run in 2020 or
Yep.
even what she did to her hands in Atalanta.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see that from Amanda. And I almost think that's never more apparent than what you were talking about in the clean ladder, or even like in these strength events where like she'll do a lift and it'll just be power, press, done. And then they jump 5 pounds and it's over. Like, how did you miss that lift? Like,
Yeah.
you just made the other one look like warm up, and then you couldn't get the bar off the ground, and we jumped 5 or 10 pounds. Like, that happens so often with Amanda, and it could just be, it's like she's just not nasty enough as you need to be when it comes to just grinding things out and getting what is that, a little dirty behind the what is that, what's that phrase? Like, gosh darn it, it was in SWAT.
Is it dirt behind the ears or?
I don't know, it's not like dirty behind the street corner or something.
Oh yeah. No, it's like I want to be worried if I bump into Amanda, after midnight that she's going to take my lunch money. Like that's the kind of like nastiness that she's got to develop. And Chase, that is such a good point about like she'll look so good and then suddenly it's over like that. There's like a weird execution element. I think you look at like how her overhead strength, like she's so powerful and strong, but like her jerk, like the jerk technique and stuff like that, like, will be fine. And all of a sudden she shorts one, like she shorts one with her footwork and then it's over. But that's also really hard to, unless you're consistently going in those upper echelon lifts, that's really hard to fine tune at times, unless you're consistently like not getting near maximal type efforts.
I think part of that too is like saving that lift. Like, why can't you, a Chandler Smith it, or even a Justin Medeiros kind of thing, right? Like what we saw in like the Bella Complex from Medeiros at the Rogue Invitational. Like that overhead save he did saved his butt.
Very
like,
impressive.
That changed everything on the leaderboard for him because he just wasn't going to miss that lift. And I just don't see that from Amanda, and that raises up in different events throughout the weekend. And I think, she gets a little nastier, a little bit more grittier, a little just like fierce behind the, the competition, scene. I think that would go a long way for her at the games.
Here's a little stay woke thought. She is a physical therapist by trade. She is not practicing right now, but I always wonder for some of the athletes that are so in tune with some of like the pitfalls and fine tunings of how the human body moves and works, that they're sometimes unwilling to go to those places to fight for those extra reps.
Interesting.
Like I said, my live-in PT is much more cautious around like those type of things where, I'm just ready to like, load the wagons and pump the shotgun and let's start blasting.
Self-preservation is not a quality I possess. That's a good thought. Yeah.
It's also why men don't live as long, I guess. But
any final picks, Patrick?
There's two, and one's based mainly on potential. Is Bethany Shadburn. She's only got one top 10 finish. That was in 2019, and then but she's dealt with so many injuries this year. Obviously, she had COVID. She had to pull out of the games due to COVID, but she's one of those things that could going into probably a podium favorite. And if you look at the program based on the type of athlete she is, and coming off a great West Coast Classic, I think she would have been fighting for a spot. But we'll see what happens. My selection is more on potential, and then the other one's more of a I think China chose one of those athletes as well. Yeah, she's podium as a team, and she's only had one top 10 finish. I think she finished 6th in 2015. But she's another one of those athletes that will go down as a highly talented athlete, never podium.
So I have one more too that I think if you talk to anyone back in like the 2009-10 era, she was like one of those athletes like, oh, she could pop off and like have a run at any moment. And I think she wasn't, I wouldn't say she was feared, but like she had the respect of her peers around like how fit she was. And that'd be Christy Adkins, formerly Christy Phillips. Multiple top 10 finishes. multiple finishes like in or around the podium, was always seen as like the woman out of the mid-Atlantic back in the day.
Yeah.
And she, she was around, in the days of Aromas, and was considered one of those athletes that she's going to do it eventually. Back-to-back 6th place finishes, 2009 and 2010. I remember, I can't remember what year it was, but she was one of the overall leaders after one of the days in Carson. And she was, it looked like she was going to turn the corner there. I think she still finished in the top 10. I got to find it. I think it was 2013. She was the overall leader after one of the days of competition, because she did so well. I believe on legless was the event that put her in the overall lead. I may be mistaken there, but I believe she was the overall leader after legless. But just always one of those athletes that was skilled, had a great engine, had a little twitch of that, like a little bit of that mongrel in him, and like you flip that switch on some events. And she used to be called, if you go back on the leaderboards, her name was formerly Christy Phillips. And she has, since switched gears and, is living the mom life and has helped build her family. So
I like that. It's a good callback.
I know. Good one.
Real good.
You guys all had really good picks today. Lots of different names that are just on the cusp of making it.
Just
So
a bit
close.
outside.
Exactly.
All right, Chase, where can people find you, listen to you, all of that good stuff?
Unfortunately, you can find me in a few places, so I'm just a little bit everywhere. But you can find me on Instagram, Chase_Ingraham. I host the podcast with my co-host Bill Grunler at Get With The Programming, and I host the CrossFit Games podcast as well. So, fortunately,
Has not been fired yet.
it has not been fired yet. Although there's always tomorrow.
You can find them at Baths and Beyonds on Saturday.
Yeah.
Tommy, where can people find you?
At Tommy Marquez on Instagram. Our podcast at Talking Elite Fitness on Instagram as well. If you're in Salinas, come say hi. You can find me just walking around aimlessly there. And then
can't miss the stash.
Nope. And then obviously our podcast is on anywhere podcasts are made or posted. So
perfect. And Patrick, where can we find you and your dogs?
You can find me in the pub. There's one. Get down. And you'll also find me in Dubai next week with Tommy. And that's about it. Find me on the Morning Chocolate, I guess.
All right, guys. Thanks for catching up with us. The top women to have just been so close to getting on the podium. Another fun segment for the bottom line. I'm Lauren Kalil, and we'll see you next time.